And it's interesting, price targets gets raised on Nvidia across the board. We're seeing maybe the market thinking in the next 12 months will go at least 20% higher on the stock. Is this a buying moment, Dan?
Well, Caroline, obviously the report that we got was kind of messy, and I'm sure you've had many conversations about netting out the H20 numbers, and they looked really good. You know, Nvidia still has tremendous opportunity in front of it with the release of the new Blackwell chip. I didn't catch the dollar figure of revenues that they did on this upcoming first quarter, but on the fourth quarter 25, they did about 11 billion in revenues on that particular chip. So you look at that, you look at things they're doing in other areas like networking and data center, which they exceeded expectations on this recent quarter, and the move out into getting more sovereign governmental customers, like the relationship that they're getting involved with in Saudi Arabia. So they've got a lot of things going on beyond just this quarter. I still feel it's a very bright future for the company.
And what's notable, as they guided for their fiscal second quarter, is the idea that profit margins, also in the longer term, are going to be recovering to the mid 70% level, I think it was. What's also interesting is that they're firing on all cylinders when it comes to data center, when it comes to the Blackwell AI architecture. There are other parts of the business model, too, that are doing well.
Yeah. Data center was very good. It was up 73%. That's the AI chip space. Gaming, what they were known as before, they got this huge presence in the GPU space in AI. They beat by over $1 billion on the quarter. Also networking, which we don't hear them talk about as much. If you ever, Caroline and Ed, sit in on the investor conferences, they'll talk about, well, something has to hold this AI chip in space in the data center. There's a rack. There's all these other equipment that they sell, and that was also exceeded expectations on the first quarter. So, areas beyond the data center, beyond what we keep focusing on, are also doing very well for them.
Daniel, when I spoke to Jensen Huang last night, he walked a very fine line. He praised President Trump for what he called innovative, revolutionary tariff policy, which onshores industry in this country. But he basically said policy is killing this company's access to China. Do you like hearing stuff like that from a CEO? Does it give you pause to go all in on a stock if the CEO uses the public forum to address politics that way?
Well, it's always dicey, right, when you're addressing President Trump and his policies. But, think about this. They were doing about 20% of their revenues out of China. And if they're not able to get another, diluted chip, let's say a new Blackwell chip that's diluted that the government will accept to selling in that market, then basically you're eliminating a huge potential of revenues for them, right? I think he's given some numbers like $50 billion AI chip market. And the thought process was that if Nvidia cannot take advantage of selling chips into that market and make money from it, then what's going to happen is there's going to be companies in China like Huawei who are developing AI chips that sell in that space. They're just going to make up for that lost demand. So it's kind of counterproductive, right, Ed? In terms of you want to be able to sell in the market, you don't want to give them chips they could potentially use against us in defense. But it's a fine line.
I think we should broaden out to the other Mag 7 names in the context of tariffs. Caroline brought us that breaking news that the administration may go to the Supreme Court as soon as Friday to challenge the U.S. Court of International Trade's judgment to block the White House current tariff initiative. In the context of Mag 7 names, how do you think this plays out?
Well, I mean, it's huge because just about all those companies are going to be impacted, especially Apple, right, in terms of their smartphones. You've got exposure from digital ad spend rates with companies like Amazon and Google. So it's really across the board. If you look at all the Mag 7, all the big tech stocks, pretty much everyone is being exposed to this various bans in various ways. So some more than others. Apple and Amazon obviously are heavily influenced by that. So, obviously if there could be a retrieve, bringing back some of those bans, that would be extremely helpful to clarify some of the uncertainty around those stocks.
It's interesting that Apple did manage to get back to that at $1.3 trillion level, Dan, on the optimism that maybe we will get a reprieve. But as it stands, how investable is it in the Mag 7 names at these valuations when we do have such lack of clarity?
It is tough, but I'm hopeful that we will get continued reprieve like we did with Apple, where we gave it, a certain, PCs and smartphones no longer applicable, but it's still a black cloud over the company. It is hard, Caroline and Ed, to put money in this group because you're not quite sure what the news headline is going to be the next day, how that's going to impact those particular stocks. I will say that the fundamentals long term of those companies are still very bright. There really is no stock in that group that we question that. So, I still feel that going forward, it's still very positive in the Mag 7 tech stocks.